There is a problem with history in this society of superficial people. See, when they pronounce the name of a personality, see, they don't know what personality is. They don't know much about that other than what was written in scriptures, history books, or whatever other sources of information. They disregard the fact that that information may be falsified, but let's say that doesn't matter. The point is, when people say a certain name, they remember how they've seen that person look in history books or wherever they've seen. And they remember more the way they look rather than, their behavior, if it is well known, or most importantly, what they did in their life. And then they use a projection. They use all sorts of attachment. Instead of viewing that person's deeds as neutral, they see them with either disgust or hatred, on one side, or with some sympathy on the other side. See, history is not there for you to like. History is not there for you to hate. History is the action of all our ancestors. And just like all beings in this world, they have done the best they could. Some have done war, some have done genocides, some have done whatever. The point is, they have done to the best of their potential. And the point is, their life is over. Their life is still present within us because all of these personalities, they are part of our race's karma. They are within us. See, many people disregard the power of the dead. The dead have a huge influence upon us, especially the more ignorant someone is. Why? Because your parents may be long dead, but you may start acting like them. You may not know your forefathers, right? Your foremothers, but you may be acting just like them. You might unconsciously have one of your great 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 grandmother's accents or great 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 aunt's accents. You might suffer because of a hatred towards men because one of your, I don't know, forefathers, right? Or a foremother, probably even 100 generations ago, had a lot of trauma because of men. And most likely that was not the only example. And even if there is generational karma, there is also a race-based karma, right? All the actions that we do are generated and, well, they are preserved over there. The more ignorant someone becomes, it's like the impulses of our ancestors creep inside of us and take hold of us. There is, as I've said in previous videos, a passion for destruction within all of us. Entropy, you may call it. Entropy is, well, let's say, a natural tendency of things to get back into chaos. And there is a whole dimension of this. There is a huge aspect of, lower vibrational energies that cling towards destruction, towards disintegration. And within us, there is this passion for aggression, right? For war, for destruction. When you look at animals, it is easy to observe. A big animal will always poke at a smaller animal just because they are smaller. A parent will always abuse their child, not because only of their frustrations, but because the child is much younger. It is much more defenseless, right? It is a natural thing. Many people call this a cruel thing, but no one said nature cares about your emotions. Everything in nature unfolds unconsciously, and most of us are unconscious. And the point is, animals also live mainly focused on survival, so they are mostly unconscious as well. They can act somewhat consciously, I would say. I'm not here to brag that our humanity is the best, but the human body indeed is a much more complex machine, especially thanks to our brain and to the potential that we can make use of. But the point is, see, many people only take into account the physical details or everything that is, marginal. When people say a certain personality, they think about the color of the skin, the color of the hair, what they promoted. Usually they think about this more, and they are missing the life. It's the same when people think about you. They think about what clothes you usually wear, at most, what colors you usually like. And all these are superficial things, because always think that if someone's span of attention doesn't go beyond your skin color, then they are not worthy of your attention. Because if the color of your skin is so important to them, that is an extreme superficiality. Because ultimately, the skin that you have is one of the outermost layers of your existence, right? Beyond that, let's say, is the aura of someone, which is even further, right? Outside of the layers of one's existence. But the skin, for example, the color of the hair and the such, they are natural aspects. They are results of natural processes, and that's it. But given the fact that there is this natural compulsive behavior towards destruction, this natural will, right, to promote calamity and ruin, when you couple this with human frustrations, this will always give birth to separation. It will usually be what people call racism, right? But racism is nothing else, as I've spoken about. It is nothing else than comparison, taken to a more extreme side. Because racism, many people think that, it is regarding race, right? And that doesn't have anything to do with race in terms of species. It has everything to do with race, the other term, right? The other meaning, which means comparison, right? When you say black people are weaker or black people are better, this is basically a comparison. And a comparison can only exist in between at least two sides, right? Exactly like a war, right? You can't have a war with yourself, right? There is a fraction of yourself that fights against you, right? Just like cancer, right? When you argue with yourself, that's like cancer. A small part of you has turned against you, right? It's something that you never needed, but you accepted it unconsciously, and now it's fighting against you, because basically that's what its vibration is all about. It doesn't belong to you, but you took it from other people thinking that it's natural, or, well, you simply absorbed it, and now it's like a little cancer. It's fighting against you. So when people support things like this, the point is their frustrations are a very great fuel towards this passion to destroy, right? To bring ruin. And this fuels separation. Obviously, separation will always be the most important pillar when it comes to many people's agendas, especially unconscious ones, who simply want to rule, right? And when you want to rule, usually you don't want the masses to coalesce. You want them separated and classified so that they fight one another on all sorts of schemes, especially religion, which I would say it is the most advanced manipulation, even if the most simplest form, but again, the most advanced one, because look at where it took us. We are at the advanced age of science, but most people still cling to this idea of godhood, because there is an intrinsic belief in them that some majestic force will descend from the skies and will solve all their problems, if not in this life, in the next life. And one of the greatest fears of humans in this world, in this century, is not the fear of death. It is the fear of being, punished by an invention of ours. This goes to show how superficial people are and how much effort has been put into keeping people away from who they are and, keeping them separated through all sorts of illusions and hatred because someone's smaller, someone's taller, someone's skin is different. Skin color is nothing else but a geographical effect upon us. It is an adaptation of our body. That is everything there is. I've specified in previous videos certain things and differences. Obviously, there may be slight differences in the skeletal components, but it's not enough to say that there is a different race, right? There may be a bit more impulsivity, but impulsivity is something that also depends on the genre. You might say that black people are a bit more impulsive, for example, but that isn't necessarily something that you should take scientifically. If we think a bit about this, if we think about karma, in a way it is true. Let's think a bit about this. Skin color varies in us from the non-color white, right, towards the darker tones, right? That's why we have white people towards the north, where it tends to be colder, and the skin colors become tend more towards the non-color black, right? Even if mulattoes, for example, are still called black by some ignorance, but all right, if people want to classify and overclassify, well, they still get trapped in their own meaning, which is a bit silly if you ask me, but all right. As I said, I don't need meaning. It is irrelevant to me. It is a collective consensus, which we agreed upon so that we can understand one another. The only reason why I would use meaning is to not entangle myself as much as most people do, but to simply try and make myself understood by the others. Whether I succeed or not, well, my life is gonna be the way it is. It is to the betterment of others that I wish to use this meaning in the first place. And at the same time, to also improve my knowledge, to also add to the wisdom that I have acquired as well. But tending more towards the equatorial area, right, there are hotter and hotter regions, right? And hotter regions also include a lot of deserts, right? And as an adaptation, the skin requires a lot more protection. So it uses a lot more vitamin D, which decomposed and with other processes results in the pigmentation of the skin in darker tones, right? So the point is, it is a natural adaptation. Now the point is, tending to be in more inhospitable areas, right, which usually are represented by deserted zones, right, desert zones, zones which aren't populated by much humans, because deserted actually means, well, it once was lived and then abandoned, so it's not the best word, but the point is, desert areas, right, they are very inhospitable areas, so it is obvious they would be more aggressive, but aggression is a natural side of us. It's just today there is a pussification of humans, right? Everything, violence related, must be shunned away, right? You must live as a coward always, right? Run from, you must always embrace a so-called pseudo-peace, right? As I call it, because they say that violence is very bad, but most people already forgot that. Last year, they almost had in the whole Europe, probably in the whole world, they had the army beat people if they wouldn't go and vaccinate themselves, right? And, the same, propaganda bearers are telling people that, wait, see, there is a problem in here. If you're violent, it's bad, right? But weren't they the ones who promoted violence and separation in the first place, right? Because everything that they promote does not apply to them, right? The elites or whatever group reaches a certain level, right? And they hide behind the masses and they want to rule the world. In order to rule, you need perfect harmony, perfect union, right? There is no such thing as comparison or colors to them, right? Skin color and that, because they know that those are just irrelevant things. They don't matter, they don't mean anything, right? And they're gonna be just hindrances, but they are only for the masses, because with these things, the masses simply cripple themselves and they make themselves so easy to rule, right? So when it comes to darker skin-toned people, usually be living in more inhospitable areas, right, where resources are much harder to find, the point is, this natural aspect of aggression that we have, it's obvious that it will be a bit more augmented, right? Because being more represented by tribal life means that they would live much simpler lives, right? As compared to Europeans, which dedicated most of their efforts towards technology and trying to make their life simpler. But their life wasn't simpler at all. They just had better means to simply mine resources and in larger areas, right? In multiple areas at the same time. In Europe, there has been the same aggression, with power simply expanding, right, and gathering resources from other places if they couldn't find their own. Same thing was in Asia. So none of the continents was a more angelic place. There was aggression everywhere. But when it comes to tribalism, the point is you're always much smaller, you have a much smaller population, so it is much, much harder to simply adapt and survive, right? But at the same time, your resource consumption is much smaller. But being groups always means that you will be at war sooner or later with other groups, right? So the point is, there may be, a karmic influence, right? You may say that karmically speaking, their ancestors, have been fighting more, right, for survival than we Europeans or Asian people did, right? But this doesn't go as evidence to say that black people, for example, are, more aggressive naturally speaking. Because all people are aggressive, but don't forget that we've been taught we Europeans have been taught that we are useless and we don't count, we don't matter, right? Your voice is not good enough, you're not good enough. This kind of led in time to a softification, a pussification of people, right? When compared to others who would simply not be afraid of dying, and dying for a certain cause was much greater for them. It was an honor, right? We think of certain Asian people, we can think of certain tribes, right? And even our ancestors in Europe would think like that, right? And then comes the great, stupidity, as I call it, right, of Christianity that says, believe in the God of love, right, but kill in the name of God of love, right? And at the same time, be afraid of the God of love. So people are very superficial. They are exactly like the scientists. See, the scientist's job is to research life. But what they are doing is they are researching properties of life. And they are missing life completely. If you have a scientist analyze a tree, they will analyze all the physical details that they can see, right? Because they are convinced at most, in their superficiality, that what they see is the most that exists. And that is kind of a problem because they will tell you all sorts of properties, leaf length, leaf colors, right, the height, probably even the age of the tree, what kind of fruits it does, all sorts of classifications, but they utterly miss the life in that tree, right? They utterly will miss the life in that tree. It's the same with many people. They will remember who you are, right, how you look, right, certain colors specific to you, like hair color, skin color, and the such, eye color, but that's kind of the most they will go because most people don't know who they are, what they're doing on this planet, what they leave behind. And well, if that's the kind of people that surround you, it's better not to waste too much time with them because, well, being so superficial kind of sucks to be them, I'd say. But everyone is doing in this world the best they can because that is how it's always been. If some people can be wise, they will do the best they can through their wisdom. Obviously, all of us are good at, putting ourselves down because this is another karmic aspect, generational aspect, right? Hundreds of generations, multiple, countless lifetimes that you've gone through in which you've been put down. And all of those, you have that ancestral energy of pulling yourself down. And when you slip back into unconsciousness, you're basically allowing those ancestral impulses, right, to ruin your life. That is why life is always more or less a race to become conscious of all your thoughts and the such, and your energy and your state. Because the moment you slip back into unconsciousness, you allow your ancestors to take hold of you. They've been long dead, right? Probably thousands of years, hundreds of years, right? All our ancestors, all our previous generations, right? They're dead, right? That's why I said previous, right? They lived before us and, well, hundreds, thousands of generations, but their influences are still within us, right? Our impulses that we may not understand, they are their impulses. When one becomes ignorant, they allow those people, right? Their influences, their destructiveness, their enforced love or whatever problems they had, we allow those to simply take back control upon us. It's like we allow them to live life again through us. That is the power that dead people have upon us. And it's not that they come back from the dead to do this upon us, right? It's just an imprint, right? It's just an imprint. It's just something that, well, see, every action that you take leaves an imprint in this universe, and it will influence, for example, all the people who will come after you. If they are ignorant, all your influences will be felt, as well as all your parents' influence, all your, well, brothers and sisters' influence, right? They will have a certain influence based, obviously, on that person's karma, because their karma also draws a certain set of influences, not everyone. If you're a drunkard, your child may not necessarily be a drunkard because they might have a different karma, right? And karma means something to fix. It is a cycle in which someone is lost into, right? Is trapped into, and they need to transcend that, right? That is, let's say, one way to summarize karma. So life is very complex. Never ever underestimate the power of the dead, because, well, they may be long gone. Don't take it just like this philosophy and this modern approach towards the dead, that you see in the anime and, movies, that they come back as vengeful spirits from the graves to simply haunt the living, and things that you see about undeads, for example, in video games, always seeming overpowered and such. Don't take it like that. The undead don't bother with the living. They have things of their own, right? They don't know who and what you are. The moment a body simply is left, let's say, by the spirit, all the memories of the spirit that they've gone through in this body, they are simply left in this body. So the very first moment the spirits detach to the body, no one around them is distinguishable. Whether you've been the mother of the deceased or the father or the son or whatever, they no longer have anything to do with you. They simply started leaving the body, and they left the discriminatory mind here, as well as the brain, as well as the memories. They don't remember who you are, what you are. They don't have any more, link towards you. They just go, and that's it. All the things, all the bondage, the karmic binderies and the such, well, their karmic influence is still upon you, right? That's what genetics also is, right? It's basically all history that you have. The entire history of this universe actually is inscribed in the DNA. But the point is, science kind of doesn't want to reveal this because, well, it will most likely reveal things about us humans that some people don't want, right? We are told that, we've been created by aliens. Some people want desperately for us to believe that we have been created by God. But if we are to take things scientifically, and even non-scientifically, God is also an alien, right? Because alien means that which does not belong to this planet, right? God most likely has created this planet, if we are to take it religiously, but he does not belong to this planet, right? So, he is indeed an alien, right? After all, he doesn't belong to this universe. He created this universe. This universe is part of creation, be it that you call it God or not, but creation itself doesn't have to be a being. If we want to take it as religiously, well, it is, let's say, a being. But that being does not belong to this universe. It created it through its powers from outside of this universe. We are just like characters in a video game, and we have been created from beyond the video game. So the creator is definitely not part of this universe. Now, obviously, things go much deeper, but oh well. Well, all this being said, remember, many people are superficial, and they will usually focus on the superficial layers that they can perceive. It is better to stay somewhat away if you want to become introspective, because simple-minded people like these easily become attached to that which their sensors can perceive, and only that. They won't accept anything beyond because it's beyond their comfort zone as well. And don't forget, there is a passion for destruction within all of us. And once someone becomes too accustomed to a way of living, right? They become too attached to something, well, they will make it their way of life. They will make it their comfort zone. Because comfort zone is basically your way of life. And once that becomes your comfort zone, you'll basically fight against anything that would change it more or less, even if change is kind of the only constant, right? All this being said, you are appreciated. Take care. Hopefully this video was introspective enough. You are appreciated. Enjoy life. Ferenc Bor signing out.